From wherever we are, we acknowledge the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia, recognising their continuing connection to this land, its waterways, the stars in the skies since time immemorial. We pay our respects to the elders, knowledge holders, and to all the generations of First Nations peoples who have nurtured their unceded sovereign lands for over 80,000 years and continue to do so today.
G'day, I'm your host Charlie Arnott, an 8th generational Australian regenerative farmer. And in this podcast series, I'll be diving deep and exploring my guests' unique perspectives on the world so you can apply their experience and knowledge to cultivate your own transition to a more regenerative way of life.
Welcome to the Regenerative Journey with your host Charlie Arnott.
Tammi, welcome to the Regenerative Journey and welcome to Grounded, Day 2, morning of. Tell me, so hi, welcome.
Hi, it's good to be here. Where am I?
What day is it?
Yeah.
Before we get to some other topical things, tell me, day 1 yesterday, any highlights, anyone you were just like blown away by, you'd been wanting to listen to, see for a while? Thoughts?
I found the conversation between Jack Pascoe and Jason Smith really not so much enlightening as fierce. Kind of taking that question about Indigenous land management, about why are we paying so much attention to farmland and not enough attention to bush, thinking about the role of fire in our landscapes and why those kind of fire managers, the people who are using the cultural fires, are not actually getting onto farmland that much because they want to look after our native bush and native animals as a priority. And then that discussion really wound into, but how do we marry these up because they're not separate? Bush surrounds farmland, there's bush in farmland, and we need to grow food in all these diverse places, and we need to also look after the rest of the ecosystem. So how could fire bridge these things a bit more? It was a really, really lovely discussion. And
topical it always is. Tell me, what about anyone else that sort of, blew your hair back that you in yesterday's activities that stand out?
No.
Put you on the spot. No one else. Well, you're in it. You're in the thick of it. So there's also the you dare I say know a lot of this stuff anyway. A lot of it's probably not new to you.
It's more that I've heard most.
You've heard of it, yeah. You've heard it before. And was there anything that you particularly went, oh my God, I'm going to go home and do that, research it, make a phone call? Was there something you inspired to action anything from yesterday's talks?
No, as Matthew said in his introduction the night before, most of the aha moments are going to come as you stand in the queue to the toilet or waiting for a coffee or bumping into somebody in the laneway as you walk back and forth. And so I had several of those kind of conversations. And one, for somebody like me who's really interested in the intrinsic infrastructure for all of us to continue farming and being able to get our food to people, was the story of a sugar processor apparently recently shut down in Port Douglas. And that has impacted on all the cane farmers around there who are actually, family farm cane farmers, even if they might have practices that are not great for the reef, but they've got an old tradition. They've been changing traditions as well, and still feeding into less and less infrastructure, and they've lost another one. So then the question of how do we, as a kind of global community, in fact, how do we help those farmers transition to maybe some agroforestry, syntropics, something that changes what they're doing but keeps them on the land, where they can't process cane anymore. What are the solutions? Because of course, losing the abattoir in Victoria has made, infrastructure is always topical.
Let's talk about that. I was just going to say, talking about processes closing down, tell us about the sort of more recent events of, down up in Victoria. You can tell us about, because you're pretty close to it all.
Yeah, it's actually one of the abattoirs we use, Hardwick, which was bought by Kilcoy in 2021, which is a big multinational, in fact, owned by a private equity firm who their thing is they like investment in sustainable agriculture and all of our infrastructure, not because they care about food and people, but because it's good investments. I don't think this one was a very good investment because abattoirs aren't, basically. And so the writing was on the wall. They said from the beginning that they would continue with service kills like the Hardwick's family had for 50 years. But now here we are only 3 years later, and we got notice last week that they are ending service kills effective 14th of December. They give us 2 weeks notice. The Food Sovereignty Alliance wrote to them, we've got them to hold off till the 1st of Feb. That's not much. It's a bit of a pittance. So we've swung into action on, we've got a petition going for Victoria on making micro-abattoirs defined in the Meat Industry Act, make them a Section 1 use, which would mean no permit required in the agricultural zones. And then as a more stopgap emergency measure, apply the game meat standards so that animals could actually be killed in the field and then refrigerated and wait for an inspector to come and approve that carcass. So if you did that, you'd save the hundreds, if not thousands, of farmers that are affected by Hardwick's closure. And the next stage is we've already got the draft of an entire national campaign of what those legislative reforms look like for every state and territory. Because DBC's closing to service kills in WA in Feb. They said in July, but they've extended to Feb. We just lost Cowra in New South Wales. You would know. That affects you.
Yeah, I lost my kill ticket there, kill number.
Yeah, Booyong further up in New South Wales. I mean, it's
right.
Just, yeah.
So, because they used to process a lot of smallholder pigs and things like that.
7th of October.
Wow. Do you think it's a bit of like all these things happening, as you said before, at the end of the year, people are busy, distracted, Parliament's sort of, are they knocked off now?
Till Feb,
yeah. So that's kind of, all the doors are shut, so there's do you think there's a bit of an overall strategy there from, not that, I don't know, what is the timing?
It certainly felt a bit like a strategy, right after Parliament stopped sitting to all the state and federal, to then make a call where we might be appealing to ministers and government, and we've got a 2-month lapse. How many farmers will just give up on the fight in those 2 months if we don't get some action more quickly? I mean, fortunately, we do have a meeting with the Ag Minister in Victoria right when I get back from Grounded. And she and many members of Parliament are across this. There was a report on from the inquiry into securing the Victorian food supply. That reported 2 days before Hardwick's gave us the news that we were out. And recommendation 27 actually picked up our language around micro-abattoirs and making them a Section 1 use. So that's being in a report to government now. And that's why we're drawing on that in the petition to say, look, you've got your own independent review found this. So implement it ASAP, or you're going to lose several hundred farmers.
And it's really in the hands of government and legislators to either break this and break the, continue to support the breaking of that system, that food system, or have the possibility of restoring it, which could actually be a really interesting deflection into a much better way of doing it anyway.
100%. It absolutely could. This could be the thing that is the game changer that demonstrates that small scale on-farm processing is a totally different matter to industrial scale feedlot growing and industrial abattoir processing. So this could be that break where we go, they're not the same thing. They should be treated differently under law. And look, there are plenty of farmers, as we know, they've been talking about in a few states, maybe every state, who are totally prepared to be non-compliant if that's what they have to do. Because why would the logical outcome of a few multinationals kicking the rest of us out be that we all stop farming? That is not a natural consequence. That's a very unnatural consequence. So the natural response, I think, is for farmers to say, fuck that, we're not doing it. We're going to keep feeding our communities.
I sat in on Chris Eggett and Jimmy yesterday, or just late afternoon, and they were obviously dairy farmers and had their view on all that, which wasn't dissimilar. Not that they said they were going to go and do things illegally, but some really strong cases. Like no one's complaining. Like they had to shut down what they were doing in one instance, and no one got sick. No one was complaining. It was just like, oh no, we've got to. And as Chris said, it's really just about them keeping their own jobs. They're not going out to the paddock to look at the quality or the health of the cattle or the grass or anything. It's just about ticking boxes and essentially going out of the way to make it really hard for producers to do what they do and produce nutrient dense food.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think though the farmers we're past a point where people are going to take it because they don't feel they have any options. People have been collectivizing for a long time. One of the things I talked about in my talk yesterday is like a crowd is not a movement. So just because we gather in crowds, if we don't form the collective organizations like the Food Sovereignty Alliance that actually interfaces with government all the time, we've been putting that bit of policy around abattoirs in front of them for 6 years and getting general interest, maybe sometime, how hard these things are. And now, the guillotine is dropped and they're like, well, shit, we better do something about it. But it's not a brand new idea.
No.
Because organizationally, we've turned up with it again and again and again.
So what's in it for the politicians to actually do something about it? What's in it for them? Because that's, at the end of the day, it's got to be some benefit for them to be doing this.
Well,
or is there more of a, if they don't, there's a big downside for them?
No, I think the benefit, the members who are supporting it, like the member who's supporting the petition in Victoria, she's had butchers and farmers ringing her constantly. She herself is a young mum. She's like, I want to access your kind of meat in the farmers markets. I want everyone to be able to access. I want my children to have this in future. So I think that more and more of them are actually kind of personally invested in the continuation of local food and healthy food and nutrient-dense food. So I think, there's something quite personal in it for some of them. Plus, in regions like ours, where it's full of smallholders, they have a huge constituency of concern.
It's a numbers game.
It is.
It always is, isn't it?
Yeah.
Dollar numbers and people numbers. Tammi, wonderful. Sun's come out.
It has.
I want to go put my lid on too because I got cooked yesterday.
Right, yesterday.
I know, I'm so red. That's why I'm wearing all red now, so my face is...
So it doesn't show.
I was going to wear blue today. Awesome. Anyone you're looking forward to seeing this afternoon, today, rest of the day?
Yes, but of course I'm going to draw a complete blank right now. I'm always interested in hearing Tanya Massey and what she has to say, and that's up next. So I'm glad that we're going to stop so I can go listen to her.
Fantastic.
That's it.
Thanks, Tammi.
Thank you.